I am Callias, a scribe of Thebes, my hands weathered from 2 decades of wielding a quill, my eyes weary from deciphering the world's truths and tragedies. The city of Thebes, with its 7 gates and limestone walls, pulses with life merchants, haggling over olives, poets reciting odes beneath the plane trees, children darting through the agora's dust. Yet a shadow clings to our streets, a name spoken in hushed tones: Heracles, son of Zeus, hero of 1,000 tales. Now a man. I saw him yesterday, standing in the agora, his towering frame stooped as if the heavens themselves pressed upon him. His eyes, once alight with the fire of divine blood, were hollow, haunted by a crime that stains his name. Gods wove a madness that drove him to slay his wife, Megara, and their 3 sons, their blood spilled by hands meant to protect them. Thebes weeps for them and for him. I stood among the crowd as he knelt before Apollo's altar, a stone slab, worn smooth by centuries of prayers. His lionskin cloak, earned in some forgotten exploit, hung heavy on his shoulders, its tawny fur catching the sun's dying light. His hands, broad as shields, trembled as he poured a libation of wine, the liquid pooling like blood on the altar. The priests, robed in white, whispered among themselves, their words a mix of pity and fear. "He seeks Delphi," one said, his voice barely audible over the crowd's murmurs. "Only Apollo's oracle can cleanse such a sin." I felt a chill, not from the evening air, but from the weight of their words. Heracles, who strangled serpents in his cradle, who felled armies with a single club, is now a supplicant, his strength useless against the guilt that gnawed him. For 20 years, I have chronicled Thebes' glories and sorrows, my scrolls filling the library with the tales of kings, wars, and gods. I recorded Cadmus' founding of our city, the curse of Oedipus, the battles of the Epiconi. Yet never have I felt such compulsion to follow a single soul. Heracles' tragedy is not just his own. It is a clash of mortal will and divine wrath, a story the gods themselves seem to demand I tell. I watched him rise from the altar, his gaze distant, as if seeing beyond the mortal world. The crowd parted, their whispers trailing him like ghosts. Kinslayer, Zeus' son, Hera's curse. I saw not just shame in his eyes, but a spark of defiance, a refusal to let his sin define him. That spark drew me, a scribe bound to truth, to follow him. I gathered my tools, papyrus, ink, quills, and joined the throng, trailing Heracles toward Delphi. Thebes faded behind us, its walls glowing gold in the dawn. The road north wound through olive groves and rocky hills, the air thick with the scent of wild thyme and dust. Pilgrims joined us, their sandals slapping the earth, their voices a hum of prayers and hopes. Heracles walked ahead, his strides long but heavy, each step a battle against the weight of his past. I wondered what drove him: guilt, duty, or a hope for redemption. Thebes' sorrow clung to us like the dust on our cloaks. I overheard a merchant, his voice low, recount how Heracles once saved his caravan from bandits, his club splintering, shields like kindling. Now that same strength had turned against his own blood, an irony that seemed to amuse the gods. The road grew steeper, Mount Parnassus rising in the distance, its slopes sacred to Apollo. I recalled Herodotus' tales of Delphi, how Croesus of Lydia fell for misreading the Pythia's words, how the oracle's riddles shaped empires. What would she say to Heracles, a man half divine, half cursed? My satchel grew heavy with blank scrolls, each one a canvas for a saga I could scarcely imagine. The pilgrims spoke of the Pythia's power, how her trance bridged mortal and divine, her words a thread in the fate's loom. I scribbled their stories, their fears, knowing they would frame Heracles' tale. A farmer, his hands calloused, spoke of Hera's wrath, how her jealousy had plagued Zeus' offspring since the dawn of time. She hates him most, he said, glancing at Heracles' broad back. His strength is her torment. As we neared Delphi, the air cooled, the scent of pine mingling with the smoke of sacrificial fires. The sacred precinct came into view, its marble columns gleaming under the sun, the amphila stone marking the world's navel. Pilgrims offered honeyed cakes, bronze tripods, woven laurels, their prayers rising like mist. Heracles carried no offering, only his guilt and his strength. I wondered if Apollo, god of light and truth, could pierce the shadow Hera had cast. My heart quickened as we approached the temple of Apollo, its pediment carved with scenes of divine triumph. The crowd's fervor grew, their voices a chorus of hope and desperation. I felt the weight of my task, to record a hero's fall and perhaps his rise. Heracles' silence was louder than any prayer, his presence a storm waiting to break. I am no warrior, no seer, only a scribe, yet I felt bound to Heracles' fate. The gods weave stories, not just for heroes, but for those who watch and write. As we stood before the temple, its columns stark against the sky, I steadied my quill, my breath catching. Dipithia awaited, her words poised to shape Heracles' path. I sensed this was no mere pilgrimage, but the beginning of a trial that would echo through ages. My scrolls, my ink, my words, they would carry his story, whether to glory or ruin. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows, and I followed Heracles into the sacred precinct, ready to etch the first chapter of his penance. The road from Thebes stretches before us, a winding path of dust and stone cutting through olive groves and rocky hills. Heracles strides ahead, his lion-skin cloak swaying with each heavy step, its tawny fur catching the dawn's golden light. The air is thick with the scent of wild thyme, stirred by the shuffle of pilgrims' sandals. Callias, scribe of Thebes, clutched my satchel of papyrus and ink, my quill itching to capture the weight of this journey. The pilgrims around us, a motley throng of farmers, merchants, and priests murmur prayers, their voices a low hum against the morning's quiet. A woman with gray-streaked hair grips a basket of honeyed cakes, her offering for the Pythia. A young man, barely bearded, hefts a bronze tripod, its legs glinting as he stumbles under its weight. Their eyes dart to Heracles, awe and fear mingling in their glances. His son, one whispers, is cursed by Hera, another mutters, spitting into the dust. The hills grow steeper, their slopes dotted with gnarled oaks and wildflowers. Mount Parnassus looms in the distance, its peak veiled in mist, a throne for Apollo. I feel the land breathing, alive with divine presence, as if the gods themselves watch our procession. Heracles' silence is a storm, his broad shoulders tense, his hands clenching and unclenching as if wrestling unseen foes. His cloak, earned in some forgotten exploit, seems to mock him, a relic of glory now stained by tragedy. I scribble notes on a scrap of papyrus, my ink smudging in the heat, capturing the pilgrim's fervor. A farmer speaks of a barren wife seeking Apollo's blessing. A warrior prays for victory. A father begs for his son's health. Their hopes weave a tapestry around Heracles, whose own quest for redemption draws them like moths to a flame. We pass through a narrow gorge where a stream gurgles over polished stones. Pilgrims kneel to drink, their hands cupping the cold water, their lips muttering thanks to the nymphs. I pause to splash my face. The chill, a brief respite from the sun's glare. A shepherd, his staff carved with spirals, sidles up to me, his eyes fixed on Heracles' towering figure. Is it true he slew his own? Asks, his voice rough as the stones beneath us. I nod, my throat tight, choosing truth over comfort. Here is doing, he growls, his spit darkening the dust. She hates him for Zeus' blood. I record his words, the bitterness of a mortal caught in divine feuds. He speaks of Heracles' past, how he saved villages from bandits, how his club felled a boar the size of a bull. Those deeds, once sung by bards, are now overshadowed by blood, and I sense the people's hope that Delphi might restore him. The road curves upward, the air growing cooler as we climb, The scent of pine mingles with the dust, and I feel the weight of our destination pressing closer. Parnassus slopes are sacred, its earth steeped in tales of Apollo's triumph over Python, the serpent whose death birthed the oracle. I recall Herodotus' accounts, how the Pythia's riddles shaped empires, how Croesus fell for misreading her words. Keys, a man half divine, half cursed. Keys, my quill hovers, eager yet hesitant, as if the ink fears the prophecy to come. The pilgrims' chatter grows louder, their offerings cakes, wine, woven wreaths clutch tightly as we near the sacred precinct. Heracles walks alone, his silence a barrier none dare breach. I wonder if he fears the oracle's judgment, or if he already senses the god's cruel design as noon crests. Delphi's precinct comes into view, nestled in a valley beneath Parnassus' misty peak. The marble columns of Apollo's temple gleam like polished bone, their shadows sharp against the earth. The ampullus stone, marking the world's navel, stands at the heart of the sanctuary, its rounded surface worn by countless hands. I pause to touch it, the cool stone grounding me, a link to Gaia's ancient reign before Apollo claimed his place. The air hums with sanctity, the scent of burning laurel drifting from sacrificial altars. Pilgrims lay their gifts before the temple, their voices rising in a chorus of supplication. I describe the scene, my quill scratching furiously, capturing the glitter of bronze, the flicker of flames, the murmur of prayers. This is no mere place. It is a threshold where mortal hopes meet divine will. Heracles stands apart, his lion skin cloak a stark contrast to the white-robed priests. He carries no offering, only the weight of his guilt and the strength of his blood. Pilgrims glance at him, some with pity, others with reverence. A priestess, her veil fluttering, whispers kinslayer to her companion, the word sharp as a blade. Heracles does not flinch, but I see his jaw tighten, his eyes fixed on the temple's entrance. I wonder if he feels the weight of their stares, the burden of their judgment. My role as scribe feels heavier here, where every word I write might echo through ages. The crowd parts as we approach the temple, its pediment carved with scenes of Apollo's triumphs, chariots, lyres, defeated serpents. The air grows thick, as if Apollo himself watches. A priest, his robes embroidered with gold, beckons us forward. The pilgrims fall silent, their prayers hushed by the temple's shadow. I note the tension in Heracles' frame, his hands still, but his eyes burning with a fire I cannot name. Is it hope, defiance, or dread? I clutch my satchel, my fingers brushing the papyrus, knowing that Pythia's words will shape not just his fate, but the story I am bound to tell. The temple's interior looms, cool and dark, the scent of laurel stronger now, mingling with the faint temps of incense. I record the pilgrims' offerings piling at the altar, the bronze tripods gleaming, the honeyed cakes crumbling under the sun. Heracles steps forward, his cloak brushing the marble, and I follow, my heart pounding like a war drum. The precinct buzzes with life, yet a stillness surrounds Heracles, as if the gods have carved a space for him alone. I overhear a merchant speak of the oracle's power, how her visions have guided kings to glory or ruin. She sees what we cannot, he says, his voice trembling. I nod, my quill capturing his words, but my eyes remain on Heracles. His silence speaks of a man wrestling with his own soul, his strength useless against the chains of guilt. The pilgrims press closer, their offerings laid bare. But Heracles offers only himself, a broken hero seeking Apollo's light. I feel the weight of my task to record a saga that might outlive us all. The temple doors gape like a maw, and I sense the gods' gaze upon us, their game unfolding with every step as we near the temple. The crowd's fervor peaks, their voices a tide of hope and desperation. I describe the scene, my ink flowing. Like the stream we passed, capturing the pilgrims' faces, the priest's solemn steps, the sacred air that seems to shimmer. Heracles' presence draws all eyes, his cloak a banner of past glories and present shame. I wonder what he sees in the temple's shadow: redemption, punishment, or something beyond mortal ken. My scrolls grow heavy, each blank page a challenge to hold the weight of his tale. The sun climbs higher, casting long shadows, and I follow Heracles toward the temple, my quill ready to etch the next chapter of his penance, where Apollo's voice awaits to shape his destiny. The temple doors loom before us, their bronze hinges glinting in the midday sun, as if guarding the secrets of the gods. Callias, scribe of Thebes, clutch my satchel, the weight of blank papyrus urging me to capture every moment of this sacred threshold. Heracles steps forward, his lion-skin cloak brushing the marble floor, its jaws framing his head like a crown of past victories. The pilgrims around us fall silent, their prayers hushed by the temple's shadow. Their offerings of honeyed cakes and bronze tripods piled high at the altar. The air is thick with the scent of burning laurel, its smoke curling upward like a prayer to Apollo. I feel the pulse of Delphi, the sacred precinct alive with divine presence, and my heart quickens as we cross into the temple's cool, shadowed interior. The marble columns rise like sentinels, their surfaces carved with scenes of Apollo's triumphs, his lyre, his chariot, the serpent Python slain at his feet. I scribble notes, my quill scratching against papyrus, capturing the flicker of oil lamps that line the walls, their flames casting dancing shadows. The crowd presses close, but Heracles stands apart, his silence a wall no one dares breach. A priest, his white robes embroidered with gold, guides us deeper, his steps measured, his voice a low chant invoking Apollo's favor. I note the pilgrims, their eyes wide as they glimpse the inner sanctum where the Pythia, Apollo's voice, awaits. Heracles' face is unreadable, his eyes fixed on the darkness ahead, as if he sees beyond the mortal world to the gods' cruel game. We descend a narrow passage, the air growing cooler, the scent of laurel sharper now, mingled with the temps of incense. The pilgrim's whispers fade, replaced by the distant drip of water echoing in the stone chamber. I feel a chill, not from the cold, but from the weight of this place, where mortal pleas meet divine will. The priest halts before a curtain of woven linen, its threads glinting with silver, and gestures for Heracles to approach. I linger at the edge, my status as scribe granting me passage, but not prominence. The curtain parts, revealing the Adyton, a sunken chamber where the Pythia sits atop a bronze tripod, her form shrouded in mist. I strain to see her, my quill poised, knowing her words will shape Heracles' fate in the saga I am bound to record. The Pythia is a figure of paradox, a maiden in garb, yet aged by divine service, her eyes hidden beneath a veil. She sways gently, her hands clutching laurel branches, their leaves trembling as if stirred by an unseen wind. The air hums, heavy with power, and I feel Apollo's presence, as if the god himself leans close to whisper through her. The pilgrims kneel, their breaths held, and I jot down their reverence, the way their hands clasp in silent prayer. Heracles stands tall, his lion-skin cloak a stark contrast to the temple's pale stone, his hand still, but his jaw tight. I wonder what he feels hope for: redemption, dread of judgment, or resignation to the gods' whims. My ink flows, capturing the moment. The tension that binds us all to this oracle's voice. The priest offers a libation, pouring wine into a shallow basin, its surface rippling like a dark mirror. He chants, his words ancient, invoking Apollo's light to guide the Pythia's vision. She breathes deeply, her chest rising and falling, and I smell the faint bitterness of laurel smoke set to carry her to the divine. Her head tilts back, her veil slipping to reveal eyes glazed with otherworldly sight. I scribble furiously, my hand cramping, as her voice breaks the silence low, resonant tone that seems to rise from the earth itself. Son of Zeus, she intones, your hands are stained with blood, your soul shadowed by Hera's wrath. The words echo, and I feel the pilgrims shudder, their fear palpable. Heracles does not move, but I see his fingers twitch as if gripping an invisible foe. The Pythia sways, her voice growing sharper, each word a thread in the fates' loom. Seek tyrants, or Eurystheus rules under heaven's decree. Serve him 12 years through labors that will test your strength and cleanse your sin. I record her prophecy, my quill trembling, knowing its weight. 12 years of servitude, a demigod bound to a mortal king. The pilgrims murmur, some in others in pity. But Heracles' face betrays no emotion, only planet that orbits around a star. I wonder if he feels the sting of humiliation or the spark of hope. The Pythia's voice falters, then strengthens. Through trials you shall find redemption, but beware the god's design, for Hera's shadow follows. Her words are a riddle. As Herodotus described, their meaning veiled yet binding. The chamber grows still, the mist swirling around the Pythia as her trance fades. The priest steps forward, his face solemn, and signals for us to withdraw. Note the pilgrims' expressions, some relieved, others troubled, as if the prophecy carries a warning for us all. Heracles turns, his eyes meeting mine for a fleeting moment, and I see a storm within them resolve, warring with doubt. I follow him out, my satchel heavy with the words I've captured, each one a fragment of his fate. The temple's cool air gives way to the sun's heat as we emerge, the precinct alive with the chatter of pilgrims. I describe the scene, the marble gleaming, the ample stone standing sentinel, the air thick with laurel smoke. As we step into the sunlight, the crowd parts, their eyes on Heracles. A woman, her basket now empty, whispers, "He'll rise again." A warrior nods, his hand on his sword, as if inspired by Heracles' burden. I record their hope, their faith, but I feel the weight of the Pythia's words. Servitude to Eurystheus, a king known for pettiness, favored by Hercules, a trap woven by the gods. I wonder if Heracles sees it too, or if his strength blinds him to the divine machinations. My quill scratches on, capturing the pilgrim's offerings. The priest's chants, the sacred air that seems to pulse with Apollo's presence. The prophecy is a chain, binding Heracles to a path of trials, and I, a mere scribe, am bound to follow. We linger in the precinct, the sun climbing higher, casting long shadows across the marble. I overhear a merchant speak of the oracle's power, how her visions have guided kings to glory or ruin. She sees what we cannot, he says, his voice trembling. I nod, my quill capturing his words, but my eyes remain on Heracles. His silence speaks of a man wrestling with his soul, his strength useless against the chains of guilt. The pilgrims begin to disperse, their offerings laid, their prayers answered or unanswered. Heracles stands by the Emphalis, his hand brushing its surface as if seeking strength from the earth itself. I feel the weight of my task, to record a saga that might outlive us all. The road to tyrants awaits. A new chapter in Heracles' Penance. I pack my scrolls, my ink, my quill, ready to follow him. The Pythia's words echo in my mind, a riddle that promises redemption, yet warns of divine treachery. I sense this is no mere prophecy, but the beginning of a trial that will test not just Heracles, but the will of the gods. The temple's shadow stretches long, and I follow Heracles, my heart pounding, my quill ready to etch the next chapter of his journey, where servitude and struggle await under Apollo's unyielding gaze. The road from Delphi stretches southward, dusty path winding through olive groves and rocky hills, the weight of the Pythia's prophecy hanging heavy over us. Icalius, scribe of Thebes, trailed behind Heracles, my satchel stuffed with papyrus, my quill itching to record the next chapter of his penance. His lionskin cloak sways with each determined stride, its jaws framing his head like a grim crown, a relic of glory now tainted by guilt. The sun beats down, its heat relentless, but Heracles presses on, his silence louder than the cicadas. Drone, the pilgrims who joined us at Delphi have dwindled, their prayers answered or abandoned, leaving only a handful of stragglers, merchants, wanderers, and me, bound by duty to chronicle a hero's fall and rise. The air carries the scent of dust and wild thyme, but beneath it lies attention. As if the gods themselves watch our march to tyrants, the journey takes us through rugged terrain, the hills giving way to plains where goats graze under the watchful eyes of shepherds. I overhear their whispers, carried on the wind, Zeus' son, bound to serve a mortal king. Their voices mix pity and awe, and I scribble their words, my ink smudging in the heat. Heracles' steps are steady, but I see the strain in his shoulders, the way his hands clench, as if grappling with the Pythia's decree 12 years of servitude to Eurystheus, a king known for pettiness, favored by Hera. I wonder what drives him, the hope of redemption, the weight of guilt, or a defiance that burns brighter than his shame. My role as scribe feels heavier with each mile, my scroll's a canvas for a saga that might outlast the stones of Greece. Tyrants comes into view as the sun dips low, its cyclopean walls rising like the bones of giants, their massive stones a testament to Mycenae's ancient might. I pause to sketch the fortress, its ramparts looming over the plain, its gates narrow and forbidding. Thebes, with its 7 gates, feels distant now, a memory of home overshadowed by this stronghold of power. Heracles halts, his gaze fixed on the walls, and I sense a flicker of reluctance in his stance, as if he knows what awaits within. The pilgrims linger at a distance, their voices hushed, and I note their fear Eurystheus is no beloved king. His rule propped by Hera's favor, his heart as cold as the bronze he hoards. I clutch my satchel, my heart pounding, ready to record the moment Heracles submits to his exile. We enter through the lion gate, stone lintel carved with twin beasts, their eyes seeming to follow us. The courtyard bustles with activity servants, hauling amphory guards, polishing spears, courtiers whispering in shadowed corners. I describe the scene, my quill scratching furiously, capturing the clatter of hooves, the glint of armor, the scent of roasting meat. Heracles draws stairs, his lionskin cloak a beacon amidst the drab tunics, but the courtiers' gazes are not kind. Kinslayer, one mutters, the word sharp as a blade. I see Heracles' jaw tighten, but he does not falter, his steps carrying him toward the Megaron, the great hall where Eurystheus holds court. I follow, my sandals scuffing the stone, my role as scribe pulling me into the heart of this divine drama. The Megaron is a cavern of power, its walls painted with frescoes of bulls and warriors, its hearth smoldering with embers. Eurystheus sits upon a throne of polished cedar, his slight frame dwarfed by its grandeur, his eyes glinting with malice. I note his apparent thin lips, a pointed beard, a diadem glinting on his brow, a man who wields Hera's favor like a weapon. His courtiers flank him, their robes embroidered with gold, their faces masks of scorn. Heracles stands before the throne, his height and strength filling the hall, yet his head is bowed. A gesture of submission that feels wrong, like a mountain bending to a breeze. I scribble, my hand cramping, capturing the tension that crackles, like a storm about to break. Eurystheus speaks, his voice high and sharp, cutting through the hall's murmurs. Heracles, son of Amphitryon, though Zeus claims you, the oracle binds you to me. I record his words, the sneer in his tone, the way his fingers grip the throne's arms. 12 years you shall serve, your strength mind to command, your sins cleansed through labors, I decree. Courtiers laugh, a cruel sound that echoes off the walls, but Heracles remains still, his eyes fixed on the floor. I see the effort it cost him, the pride warring with the Pythia's mandate. My quill moves, capturing the king's glee, the courtier's mockery. The weight of divine will pressing upon us all. A priestess, her veil marked with Hera's peacock, steps forward, her voice dripping with piety. The goddess wills it. She declares that Zeus' bastard be humbled. I note her words, the venom behind them, and I sense Hera's presence, as if her eyes peered through the priestess' veil. Heracles does not respond, but I see his hands clench, the knuckles whitening beneath the lion-skin cloak. I wonder if he feels the god's game, Hera's wrath pitted against Apollo's promise of redemption. The courtiers whisper their words, a mix of fear and disdain, and I record them, knowing they frame the saga unfolding before me. He'll break, one says. No man defies Hera, another adds. I disagree silently, my quill, my only voice. Eurystheus leans forward, his eyes narrowing. Your first labor will come soon, son of Zeus. Prove your worth, or let your sins consume you. The threat hangs heavy, and I feel a chill, knowing the king's tasks will be cruel, designed to crush rather than cleanse. Heracles nods, a single motion, and I see the spark in his eyes' defiance, buried but alive. The hall grows quiet, the courtiers' laughter fading, as if they sense the storm within him. I describe the scene, the throne's gleam, the priestess smirk, the weight of exile settling on Heracles' shoulders. My scrolls grow heavy, each word a step toward his destiny. We are dismissed, the guards ushering us from the Megaron. Outside, the courtyard buzzes with gossip, the air thick with the scent of dust and fear. I overhear a servant speak of Eurystheus' cruelty, how he hoards power like gold, how Hera's priests guide his every move. I record his words, the fear in his voice, knowing they add depth to Heracles' tale. The sun sinks lower, casting long shadows across the Cyclopean walls. And I follow Heracles as he strides toward the quarters assigned to him, modest chamber, unfit for a hero. He does not complain, his silence a shield. And I wonder what thoughts churn beneath his stoic mask as night falls. I sit by a flickering lamp, my quill scratching out the day's events. Tyrants feels like a cage, its walls closing around Heracles. Yet I sense his strength, a fire that Hera cannot snuff out. The Pythia's prophecy echoes in my mind, 12 years, labors, redemption. I wonder what tasks Eurystheus will devise, what trials await under Hera's watchful gaze. My role as scribe binds me to this saga, my scrolls a testament to a hero's exile, to ring Heracles' path, knowing his journey has just begun, and I, Callias, must follow. My quill ready to etch the next chapter of his penance under the god's unyielding will. The torchlight flickers in Tyrant's shadowed courtyard, casting long, wavering shadows across the Cyclopean walls. I, Callias, scribe of Thebes, sit on a stone bench, my papyrus spread before me, my quill poised to capture the whispers that swirl like dust in the evening air. Heracles, exiled now under Eurystheus' decree, rests in his modest chamber, his lion-skin cloak draped over a wooden stool, its jaws agape as if echoing the terror we've begun to hear. The city of Tyrants, with its towering stones and restless guards, hums with unease, not just from Heracles' presence, but from tales carried on the wind tails of the Nemean lion, a beast set to stalk the valleys beyond, its hide impervious, its claws sharper than any mortal blade. I lean closer to the voices, my ink ready to etch the fear and hope that cling to this hero's name. The courtyard is alive with the murmur of servants, merchants, and shepherds, their words weaving a tapestry of dread. I overhear a grizzled farmer, his hands gnarled from years of toil, speaking to a cluster of listeners near the well. "It took my entire flock," he says, his voice trembling, "left nothing but bones scattered like pebbles." I scribble his words, the ink flowing as I describe his weathered face, the way his eyes dart toward the horizon, as if the lion might lurk just beyond the walls. He speaks of Nemea, a valley not far from Tyrants, where fields once green now lie barren, haunted by a beast no spear can pierce. Its hide, he whispers, turns arrows to splinters, swords to kindling. The crowd shudders, and I note their fear, the way their hands clutch amulets, their prayers muttered to Zeus and Apollo. A young woman, her shawl stained with dust, joins the tale, her voice low but sharp. "My brother saw it," she says, golden as the sun, eyes like burning coals. I record her words, capturing the tremor in her hands as she describes the lion's roar, a sound that shook the hills and froze the blood of every shepherd. "In Nemea, he hid in a cave," she continues, "but the beast dragged his friend away, left only scraps." The listeners gasp, and I feel the weight of their stories, each one a thread in the saga I'm bound to tell. The Nemean lion, they say, is no mere beast, but a creature of divine wrath, perhaps spawned by Hera herself to torment Heracles, her hated foe. I jot down this suspicion, my quill scratching furiously, knowing that God's hands shaped this terror. The night deepens, the stars bright above Tyrant's walls, and I move closer to a fire where a group of guards huddle, their spears propped against the stone. One, a scarred veteran with a voice like gravel, speaks of the lion's lair, cave in Nemea's hills, its entrance littered with bones. "No man's gone near and lived," he says, his eyes glinting in the firelight. I describe the scene, the crackle of flames, the guards' tense postures, their tales of villagers fleeing Nemea, their homes abandoned to the beast's reign. "It's not natural," another guard mutters. "Its hide defies steel, its strength a match for 10 men. Record their words, sensing the lion's legend growing, shadow cast over Tyrants as surely as Hera's malice. A merchant, his cloak heavy with the dust of travel, joins the circle, his voice carrying the weight of distant markets. "They say it's Typhon's spawn," he declares, "born of the monster who challenged Zeus." I note this, recalling myths of Typhon, the serpent beast buried under mountains, his offspring cursed with divine power. The merchant speaks of Nemea's despair, how trade has halted, how farmers dare not sow their fields. "The people pray for a savior," he says, his eyes drifting toward Heracles' chamber. I scribble, my hand cramping, capturing the hope that flickers in his voice. The belief that Heracles, despite his sins, might be their deliverance. The crowd nods, their murmurs a mix of fear and faith, and I feel the saga taking shape. Heracles, name a beacon in their darkness. I wander through the courtyard, my sandals scuffing the stone, seeking more voices to fill my scrolls. A priestess of Hera, her veil marked with peacock feathers, stands near a shrine, her eyes cold as she speaks to a servant. "The lion is Hera's will," she hisses, a test for the kinslayer. I record her words, the venom in her tone, knowing they reveal the goddess's hand. She speaks of Heracles' crime, how his bloodied hands offend Hera, how the lion is her instrument to break him. I note the irony. Hera's wrath fuels the beast, yet the people look to Heracles to slay it. My quill moves, capturing the divine conflict that binds this tale, the gods' game played on mortal soil. A boy, no older than 12, approaches me, his eyes wide with awe. "Is it true he's Zeus' son?" he asks, glancing toward Heracles' chamber. I nod, and he grins, recounting tales he's heard of Heracles strangling serpents in his cradle, felling armies with a single club. "He'll kill the lion," the boy says, his voice brimming with certainty. I smile, but my heart is heavy, knowing the task's impossibility. So I record his hope, the way his small hands mimic a warrior's grip, and I see Heracles' legend growing, even in exile. The boy's mother calls him away, her voice sharp with fear, and I note her glance toward the hills, as if the lion's roar might echo through Tyran's walls. The firelight fades, the courtyard emptying as the night grows cold. I sit alone, my lamp flickering, my papyrus spread before me. The tales of the Nemean lion fill my scrolls, its vulnerable hide, its savage claws, its divine origins. I describe the people's fear, their fields abandoned, their prayers unanswered. Yet I also record their hope, the whispers that Heracles, cursed though he is, might be their savior. I think of the Pythia's prophecy, her words binding him to Eurystheus, and I wonder if this lion is the first labor, a test designed to crush him. My quill scratches on, capturing the tension, the divine machinations that weave through Tyrion's air as dawn nears. I hear footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Heracles emerges from his chamber, his cloak draped over his shoulders, his eyes fixed on the horizon. I note the resolve in his stance, the way his hands rest calmly, as if ready for battle. The courtyard is quiet now, but the tales linger, a chorus of fear and faith. I sense the weight of his task, the lion's terror a shadow over Nemea, and I know his exile is no mere punishment but a crucible. My scrolls grow heavy, each word a step toward his destiny. I pack my quill, my ink, ready to follow him, knowing the gods' eyes are upon us, their game unfolding with every tale of the Nemean lion. The dawn breaks over Tyrants, its cyclopean walls bathed in a pale golden light, but the air carries a chill that no sun can warm. I, Callias, scribe of Thebes, stand in the courtyard, my papyrus clutched tightly, my quill ready to capture the moment that will shape Heracles' path. The tales of the Nemean lion still echo in my ears, whispered by shepherds and merchants, their voices thick with fear and fragile hope. Heracles stands nearby, his lionskin cloak draped over his broad shoulders, its jaws framing his face like a grim omen. The fortress hums with tension, guards pacing the ramparts, servants scurrying with lowered eyes, as if the weight of divine will presses upon us all. A summons has come from the Megaron, where Eurystheus, king of tyrants and puppet of Hera, awaits to deliver Heracles' first labor. We entered the great hall, its frescoed walls alive with images of bulls and warriors, their colors vivid in the torchlight. I note the scene, my quill scratching against papyrus, capturing the scent of smoldering embers in the hearth, the glint of bronze armor on the guards. Eurystheus sits upon his cedar throne, his slight frame dwarfed by its grandeur, his pointed beard and diadem glinting with calculated menace. His courtiers flank him, their robes embroidered with gold, their faces masks of scorn and anticipation. A priestess of Hera, her veil marked with peacock feathers, stands at his side, her eyes cold as the marble floor. Heracles strides forward, his presence filling the hall, yet his head is bowed. A gesture of submission that feels like a mountain yielding to a breeze. I stand at the edge, my satchel heavy, my heart pounding as I prepare to record the king's decree. Eurystheus leans forward, his thin lips curling into a sneer. Heracles, son of Amphitryon, though Zeus claims you, the oracle binds you to my will. His voice is sharp, cutting through the hall's murmurs like a blade. I scribbled his words, noting the malice in his tone, the way his fingers gripped the throne's arms, as if anchoring himself against Heracles' towering presence. The Pythia has spoken, and I, chosen by Hera, shall set your path to redemption or ruin. The courtiers laugh, a cruel sound that echoes off the walls, and I feel a chill, knowing this labor will be no mere task, but a trap woven by divine spite. Heracles stands still, his eyes fixed on the floor, but I see the tension in his jaw, the spark of defiance buried beneath his silence. The priestess steps forward, her veil fluttering, her voice dripping with piety. Hera, Queen of Heaven, watches you, kinslayer, she says, her words a venomous prayer. Your sins stain the earth, and only through trials shall you atone. I record her speech, the way her hands clutch a peacock feather, the symbol of Hera's watchful gaze. She speaks of the Nemean lion, a beast of divine wrath, its hide impervious to mortal weapons, its claws a terror to Nemea's people. This is no ordinary creature, she intones, but a challenge born of the goddess's will. I note the courtiers' nods, their eyes gleaming with anticipation, as if they relish Heracles' coming struggle. My quill moves, capturing the divine machinations. The way Hera's influence weaves through every word. Eurystheus raises a hand, silencing the hall. Your first labor, Heracles, is to slay the Nemean lion, he declares, his voice ringing with false authority. Bring me its pelt, proof of your victory, or let its jaws claim you. The courtiers erupt in murmurs, some mocking, others fearful, and I scribble furiously, describing the king's smirk, the way his eyes dart to the priestess for approval. The task is impossible, designed to break even a demigod arrows cannot pierce the lion's hide. Swords cannot cut it. Recall the shepherd's tales, their voices trembling with fear of the beast's savagery. And I know Eurystheus expects Heracles to fail, his exile a prelude to death. My heart sinks, but I see Heracles' hands clench, his knuckles whitening beneath the lion-skin cloak. Heracles speaks at last, his voice low but steady, like a river carving stone. I accept your task, Eurystheus, as Apollo's oracle decrees. The hall falls silent, the courtiers' laughter stilled by the weight of his words. I note the resolve in his tone, the way his eyes lift to meet the king's, unflinching despite the scorn. The priestess hisses, her feather trembling, but Eurystheus leans back, his smirk faltering for a moment. I sense Hera's presence, a shadow over the throne, her wrath fueling this cruel labor. My quill captures the moment, the tension between mortal king and divine hero, the god's game unfolding in the flickering torchlight. A guard, spear glinting, steps forward to describe the lion's terror. It haunts Nemea's hills, he says, his voice rough with fear. No man has faced it and lived. I record his words, the way his hands grip his spear, as if the lion might burst through the walls. He speaks of villages, abandoned, fields, left fallow. The beast roars, echoing through the night. The courtiers whisper, their eyes darting to Heracles, some with pity, others with glee. I note their faces, their greed for spectacle, knowing this labor is as much a performance for Hera as it is a test for Heracles. My scrolls grow heavy, each word a testament to the impossible task now laid before him. Eurystheus waves a hand, dismissing us, but his voice follows. Fail, and your sins remain, kinslayer. Succeed, and no more trials await. The threat hangs heavy, and I feel the weight of Hera's malice, her desire to see Heracles broken. We exit the Megaron, the courtyard bustling with servants and guards, their whispers carrying the news of the labor. I overhear a merchant speak of Nemea's despair, how the lion's reign has choked trade, how the people pray for a savior. He'll die, one says. No, another counters. He's Zeus' son. I record their hope and fear, knowing Heracles' legend grows even in exile. Outside, the night air is cool, the stars bright above Tyrant's walls. I sit by a lamp, my papyrus spread before me, my quill scratching out the day's events. The Nemean lion, a beast of divine wrath, looms over Heracles' path, its invulnerable hide a challenge no mortal could meet. I describe Eurystheus' cruelty, the priestess' venom, the courtier's scorn, and Heracles' quiet resolve. The Pythias prophecy echoes in my mind, 12 years of servitude, labors to cleanse his soul. This first task feels like Hera's opening move, a test, to crush him before he can rise. My heart races as I write, knowing Heracles will soon face the beast. His strength pitted against divine design. Heracles emerges from his chamber, his cloak draped over his shoulders, his eyes fixed on the distant hills where Nemea lies. I note the determination in his stance, the way his hands rest calmly, as if ready for battle. The courtyard is quiet now, but the tales of the lion linger, a chorus of terror and hope. I sense the weight of his task, the beast, a shadow over his exile, and I know this labor is no mere trial, but a crucible forged by the gods. My scrolls grow heavy, each word a step toward his destiny. I pack my quill, my ink ready to follow, him to Nemea, my heart bound to his saga, my quill poised to etch the next chapter of his penance under Hera's watchful gaze. The gates of Tyrant's Creek open at dawn, their bronze hinges groaning under the weight of Cyclopean stone. I, Callias, scribe of Thebes, stand ready with my satchel of papyrus and ink, my quill trembling with the weight of the saga unfolding before me. Heracles strides ahead, his lionskin cloak draped over his shoulders, his jaws framing his face like a warrior's helm, a stark reminder of past triumphs, now overshadowed by the task at hand. The Nemean lion, a beast of divine wrath, awaits in the hills beyond, its hide impervious, its claws a terror to all who speak its name. The air is thick with dust and the scent of wild thyme. But a heavier burden hangs over us, Eurystheus' cruel command, backed by Hera's malice. I follow Heracles, my sandals scuffing the earth, bound to record his journey into Nemea's wilds. The road to Nemea winds through barren plains, the sun climbing high, its heat a relentless hammer on our backs. Heracles' steps are steady, his broad frame cutting a solitary path through the dust. I note the silence that surrounds him, broken only by the crunch of gravel and the distant bleat of a goat. No pilgrims follow us now. The tales of the lion have driven them to safer paths. I recall the whispers in Tyrant's courtyard, the farmer's tale of slaughtered flocks, the woman's story of a brother's loss, the guard's warning of a cave littered with bones. My quill scratches these memories onto papyrus, each word a thread in the tapestry of Heracles' penance. The landscape grows bleaker, olive groves giving way to thorny scrub and jagged rocks. As if Nemea itself mourns under the lion's reign, we pass a deserted village, its mud brick houses crumbling, their doors ajar like gaping wounds. I pause to sketch the scene, my ink capturing the eerie stillness, the abandoned looms and broken pots scattered in the dust. A weathered shrine to Demeter stands at the village's edge, its altar bare, no offerings to appease the goddess. Heracles stops, his eyes scanning the hills, and I see the focus in his gaze. Caes's hunter's instinct sharpened by divine blood. Caes's near, he says, his voice low, the first words he's spoken since Tyrants. I record them, my hand steady. Despite the chill that runs through me, the village's fear lingers in the air, their absence a testament to the lion's terror. And I sense Heracles' resolve hardening, as if he carries their hope on his shoulders. The path climbs into the hills, the terrain growing rougher, the air thick with the scent of pine and decay. I struggle to keep pace, my sandals slipping on loose stones, but Heracles moves with purpose, his club slung across his back, his bow and quiver at his side. I note the weapons, their bronze tips gleaming, though the tails worn, they are useless against the lion's hide. My quill captures the landscape, the jagged cliffs, the twisted trees, the distant cry of a hawk. A shepherd, his flock reduced to a handful, huddles by a stream, his eyes wide as he spots Heracles. "You're him," he whispers, his voice trembling. "The one they sent to kill it." I record his awe, the way his hands clutch his staff. As if it could ward off the beast, Heracles kneels beside the shepherd, his voice gentle but firm. "Tell me of the lion," he says, and I lean closer, my papyrus ready. The shepherd speaks of tracks as wide as a man's chest, of roars that shake the hills, of a cave where the beast lairs, its entrance marked by bones. It fears no blade. He warns, his face pale. "It took my son's herd in a single night." I scribble his words, the grief in his eyes, the way Heracles listens, his face unreadable, but his hands steady. The shepherd points to a ridge, its shadow looming over the valley, and I note the direction. Knowing it leads to the lion's domain, Heracles rises, his cloak swaying, and offers the shepherd a not a silent promise that carries the weight of a vow. We press on, the hills growing steeper, the air heavy with the promise of danger. I describe the terrain, my quill capturing the cracked earth, the thorns that snagged my tunic, the distant howl of a wind that feels like Hera's breath. Heracles' pace quickens, his eyes scanning the ground for sign tracks, scat, broken branches. I note his focus, the way his muscles tense, as if he senses the beast's presence. My heart pounds, my ink smudging as I write, but I cannot look away. The tales of the lion swirl in my mind, its invulnerable hide, its divine origins, its role as Hera's weapon. I wonder if Heracles feels the goddess's eyes upon him. Her malice, a shadow that follows his every step. A footprint appears in the dust, massive and deep, its edges sharp as if carved by stone. I sketch it, my quill trembling, noting the claw marks that gouge the earth. Heracles kneels, his fingers tracing the print, his face a mask of determination. "It's close," he says, his voice a low rumble, and I feel a surge of fear, not for myself but for the saga I must record. The hills grow silent, the hawk's cry gone, the air thick with the stench of decay. I describe the moment, the way the sun dips behind a ridge, casting long shadows that seem to writhe like serpents. Heracles adjusts his club, his bow, his quiver, but I sense his doubt the weapons are useless, the tale's true. My scrolls grow heavy, each word a step toward the inevitable clash. We reach a rocky outcrop, the valley of Nemea spreading below, its fields barren, its villages empty. I note the desolation, the way the earth seems to hold its breath. Heracles pauses, his eyes scanning the horizon, and I see the weight of his task settle upon him. The shepherd's words echoed the cave, the bones, the lion's unmatched strength. I record his resolve, the way his hands rest calmly, as if ready to wrestle fate itself. A distant roar splits the silence, deep and guttural, shaking the hills. My quill falters, my heart racing, but Heracles does not flinch. "There," he says, pointing to a shadowed cleft in the ridge. And I know we've found the lion's lair. The air grows thick, the stench of death stronger now, and I describe the scene: twisted trees, scattered bones, the cave's dark maw. Heracles' cloak sways as he steps forward, his club gripped tightly, his eyes burning with a fire I cannot name. I follow, my sandals slipping, my papyrus clutched like a shield. The tales of Nemea, the shepherd's grief, the villager's fear, they all converge here, in this moment. I sense Hera's presence, her wrath a weight upon the air, But I see Heracles' strength, a spark that defies her. Quill scratches on, capturing the tension, the desolation, the hero's solitary march. The cave looms closer, its darkness a challenge, and I, Callias, am bound to follow, my scrolls ready to itch the next chapter of his penance under the god's unyielding gaze. The shadowed cleft in the ridge looms before us. It's a dark maw carved into the rocky heart of Nemea. I, Callias, scribe of Thebes, clutch my satchel of papyrus, my quill trembling as the stench of death wafts from the cave. Heracles stands at its edge, his lion-skin cloak swaying in the hot, dry wind, its jaws framing his face like a grim mirror of the beast within. The sun hangs low, casting jagged shadows across the barren hills, and the air is thick with the weight of divine wrath. The Nemean lion, a creature of Hera's malice, waits in the darkness, its invulnerable hide a challenge no mortal could meet. I follow Heracles, my sandals slipping on loose stones, my heart pounding as I prepare to record the moment he faces the beast. The ground is littered with bones, bleached white and scattered like broken offerings, their edges gnawed and splintered. I pause to sketch the scene, my ink capturing the desolation, twisted trees, their branches clawing at the sky, and the cave's entrance, a gaping wound in the earth. Stench grows stronger, a sickly blend of rot and musk, and I gag, my hand shaking as I write. Heracles kneels, his fingers tracing a massive paw print, its claws gouging the earth like daggers. "It's here," he says, his voice low, steady, a contrast to the fear that grips me. I note his calm, the way his eyes scan the darkness, as if he can see the lion's golden form lurking within. My scrolls feel heavy, each word a step toward the clash I dread yet must witness. The cave's mouth is wide, its interior swallowed by shadow, and I describe the chill that seeps from it, as if the earth itself recoils from the beast. Heracles adjusts his club, its olive wood worn smooth by years of battle, and unslings his bow, the bronze-tipped arrows glinting in the fading light. I recall the shepherd's tales, their warnings that no weapon can pierce the lion's hide. But Heracles' face shows no doubt, only a hunter's focus. I follow at a distance, my sandals crunching on bones, my quill scratching as I capture the tension, the silence of the hills. The distant cry of a hawk, the weight of Hera's gaze. The villagers' fear, the merchant's tales, the priestess' venom, they all converge here in this desolate place. Heracles steps into the cave, his cloak blending with the shadows, and I hesitate, my courage faltering. The darkness swallows him, and I force myself forward, my lamp flickering as I clutch my papyrus like a shield. The air inside is damp, heavy with the reek of decay, and I note the walls, slick with moisture, etched with claw marks that gleam like silver in the lamplight. Bones crunch underfoot, some human, others animal, and I shudder, my quill faltering as I describe the horror. A low growl rumbles through the cave, deep and guttural, shaking the stone, and I freeze, my heart hammering. Heracles pauses, his bow raised, and I see the glint of his eyes, unyielding despite the terror that grips me. The growl grows louder, and a pair of eyes appears in the darkness, burning like coals, set in a massive golden form. I sketch the lion, my hand trembling, capturing its size larger than any beast I've seen, its fur shimmering like molten gold, its claws glinting like obsidian. Heracles knocks an arrow, his movement swift, and looses it, the bronze tip flashing. As it flies, the arrow strikes the lion's flank, but it bounces off, clattering to the stone, useless as a twig. I record the moment, my ink smudging as the lion roars, a sound that shakes my bones and echoes through the cave. Heracles fires again and again, each arrow failing, splintering against the beast's hide. I note his frustration, the way his jaw tightens his hands gripping the bough as if willing it to succeed. The lion lunges, his claws raking the air, and Heracles leaps aside, his club swinging in a blur. The blow lands on the beast's shoulder, but the wood splinters, fragments flying like sparks. I scribble furiously, capturing the chaos the lion snarl, the crunch of bone underfoot, the flicker of my lamp as I pressed against the wall. Heracles discards the broken club, his bow useless, and I see the realization in his eyes. No weapon can fell this creature. The lion charges again, its jaws wide, and Heracles ducks, rolling across the stone, his cloak tearing on jagged rock. I describe his speed, his strength, the way he moves like a storm, yet the lion is relentless. Its hide a divine shield. I cower in the shadows, my lamp dimming, my quills scratching as I record the battle's fury. The lion's roars fill the cave, each one a hammer against my chest, and I note Heracles' struggle, his muscles straining as he dodges another swipe. He draws a bronze dagger, its blade gleaming, and thrusts at the lion's side, but the metal bends, useless as straw. I write of his desperation, the way his eyes burn with defiance, refusing to yield to Hera's design. The lion circles, its eyes locked on him, and I sense the gods watching, Apollo's promise of redemption pitted against Hera's wrath. My scrolls grow heavy, each word a testament to this impossible fight. Heracles retreats deeper into the cave, the lion stalking him, its tail lashing like a whip. I follow, my lamp barely illuminating the path, my heart racing as I describe the narrowing walls, the air thick with the beast's musk. The lion lunges again, and Heracles grabs a boulder, hurling it with a force that shakes the cave. It's a stone, strikes the lion's head, but it only roars, unfazed, its hide unbroken. I note Heracles' realization, his weapons useless, his strength his only ally. He tosses the dagger aside, his hands flexing, and I see a shift in his stance, a resolve that defies the gods' cruel game. My quill captures the moment, the tension, the hero's refusal to break. The cave grows darker, my lamp flickering, but I press on, my duty binding me to this saga. Heracles and the lion circle, their movements a deadly dance. And I describe the scene, the glint of claws, the shimmer of golden fur, the hero's cloak torn but unyielding. The lion's roars grow louder, echoing like thunder, and I feel the weight of Hera's malice, her desire to see Heracles fall. Yet I see his strength, a spark that burns brighter than the darkness. My ink smudges, my hand cramping, but I write on, knowing this moment is a crucible, a test of divine will and mortal might. The cave's maw looms behind us, and I, Callias, am bound to follow, my scrolls ready to etch the next chapter of Heracles' Penance. The cave's darkness presses around us, a suffocating shroud broken only by the flicker of my dying lamp. Callias, scribe of Thebes, crouch against the slick stone wall, my papyrus clutched tightly, my quill trembling as I strain to capture the chaos unfolding before me. Heracles stands in the heart of the Nemean lion's lair, his lion-skin cloak torn, its fur matted with dust and blood. The beast, a golden terror born of Hera's wrath, circles him, its eyes burning like coals, its claws glinting like obsidian in the faint light. The air is thick with the stench of decay, the ground littered with bones, and the lion's roars shake the cave, each one a hammer against my chest. Heracles' weapons club shattered, arrows useless, dagger bent lie scattered, leaving only his strength to face this divine beast. I scribble, my ink smudging, as the battle of titans begins. The lion lunges, its jaws wide, teeth gleaming like daggers. Heracles dives to the side, his movements swift despite his massive frame. And the beast's claws rake the stone, sending sparks flying. I note the speed, the power, the way Heracles' muscles ripple under his sweat-slicked skin, his cloak flapping like a tattered banner. The lion turns, its tail lashing, and charges again, its roar a deafening wave that drowns my thoughts. Heracles meets it head-on, his hands grasping for its mane, his feet braced against the cave's floor. I describe the clash, the way the lion's paws slam against his chest, pushing him back, yet he holds fast, his strength a match for the beast's divine fury. My quill scratches furiously, capturing the chaos, the dust rising like mist, the bones crunching underfoot. Heracles grapples the lion, his arms locking around its neck, his fingers digging into its golden fur. The beast thrashes, its claws slashing, tearing at his cloak and grazing his skin. I see blood, well, dark against his flesh, but Heracles does not falter, his face a mask of grim determination. I record the struggle, the way his muscles strain, veins bulging like rivers under his skin, as he wrestles a creature no mortal could hope to defeat. The lion's hide, impervious to blade and arrow, yields nothing to his grip, but he tightens, his hold, his breath ragged, his eyes burning with a fire that defies Hera's malice. My lamp flickers, its light barely holding against the darkness, and I press closer to the wall, my heart pounding as I write. The lion roars again, its jaws snapping inches from Heracles' face, its breath hot and fetid. He twists, using its momentum to slam it against the cave wall, the impact shaking loose a shower of dust and pebbles. I note the sound, a thunderous crack that echoes through the chamber, and the lion's momentary stagger, but it recovers, its claws raking Heracles' arm, drawing more blood. I describe his pain, the way he grits his teeth, his grip unwavering despite the wounds. The beast is relentless, its strength divine, a creation of Hera meant to break him. Yet I see Heracles' resolve, a spark that burns brighter than the lion's eyes. And I scribble, my hand cramping, knowing this is no mere fight, but a test of mortal will against divine wrath. They roll across the cave floor, a tangle of muscle and fur, the lion's claws tearing at Heracles' cloak, shredding it further. I record the fury, the way the beast's teeth snap, missing his throat by a hair's breadth, the way Heracles' hands tighten around its neck, seeking a chokehold. The cave trembles, stones falling from the ceiling, and I duck my lamp nearly extinguished, but I write on, capturing the chaos, the lion's roars, Heracles' grunts, the crunch of bone and stone. The air grows thicker, the stench of blood and musk overwhelming, and I feel the god's presence, Apollo's promise of redemption, clashing with Hera's desire for ruin. My quill falters, but I force it to move, driven by my duty to this saga. Heracles shifts his grip, his arms wrapping tighter, his legs pinning the lion's hindquarters. The beast thrashes, its tail whipping, its claws gouging the floor, but Heracles holds fast, his strength a force of nature. I note his endurance, the way his muscles bulge, his breath coming in sharp gasps, yet he does not yield. The lion's roars weaken, its movement slowing, and I see a glimmer of hope in Heracles' eyes, a realization that his hands, not his weapons, might prevail. I describe the moment, the shift in the battle, the way the lion's golden fur dulls in the dim light, its eyes flickering with something like fear. My ink smudges, my lamp sputtering, but I write on, capturing the hero's defiance. The struggle drags on, minutes stretching into eternity, and I record the exhaustion in Heracles' frame, the sweat streaming down his face, the blood staining his arms. The lion fights back, its claws catching his side, tearing a gash that makes me wince, but Heracles tightens his hold, his arms like iron bands around the beast's neck. I note the desperation, the way the lion's thrashing grows frantic, its roars now, choked, gasps. Heracles' face is set, his eyes burning with a fire that seems to draw from Zeus himself. And I sense the gods watching, their game hinging on this moment. My quill races, capturing the tension, the cave's trembling walls. The hero's unyielding will, the lion's movements slow, its body sagging under Heracles' grip, but it lashes out one last time, its claws raking his leg, scrunt, his hold slipping for a heartbeat, and I fear the beast will break free, but he recovers, his arms tightening with a force that shakes the air. I describe the climax, the way the lion's eyes dim, its body slumping, its roars fading to silence. Heracles holds on, his breath ragged, until the beast lies still, its golden form lifeless on the cave floor. I scribble, my hand shaking, capturing the victory, the blood, the dust, the hero standing over his foe. My lamp flickers out, plunging us into darkness, but I feel the weight of the moment. A triumph born of mortal strength against divine design. Relight my lamp, its weak flame revealing Heracles kneeling beside the lion, his chest heaving, his cloak in tatters. I note his wounds, the gashes on his arms and side, the blood mingling with the cave's dust. He touches the lion's hide, its golden fur still shimmering, and I see a flicker of awe in his eyes, as if he recognizes the divine power he's overcome. My quill captures the scene, the silence that follows the battle, the bones scattered like offerings around us. I sense Hera's wrath, a shadow in the air, but also Apollo's light, guiding Heracles toward redemption. My scrolls grow heavy, each word a testament to this grueling fight. Heracles rises, strength unbroken despite his wounds, and I follow, my lamp casting long shadows as we move toward the cave's mouth. The battle is won, but I know the labor is not complete. Eurystheus demands the lion's pelt, a trophy to prove Heracles' victory. I describe the aftermath, the hero's steady steps, the lion's lifeless form, the cave's oppressive silence. The gods' game continues, hero's malice countered by Heracles' might, and I, Callias, am bound to record it. My quill ready to etch the next chapter of his penance as we emerge from the lion's den into the fading light of Nemea's hills. The cave's darkness clings to us, a heavy shroud broken only by the faint glow of my relit lamp. I, Callias, scribe of Thebes, stand trembling, my papyrus clutched tightly, my quill poised to capture the aftermath of Heracles' grueling battle. The Nemean lion lies lifeless on the cave floor, its golden fur dulled by dust and blood, its massive form a testament to the divine wrath it embodied. Heracles kneels beside it, his chest heaving, his lionskin cloak in tatters, gashes crisscrossing his arms and side. The air is thick with the stench of blood and musk, the silence deafening after the lion's roars. I scribble, my ink smudging, as I record the triumph of mortal strength over Hera's beast. Knowing this moment is but a step in Heracles' penance. Heracles' hands, bloodied and bruised, rest on the lion's neck, where his iron grip choked the life from it. I note the wounds on his body, the deep claw marks on his arm, the gash across his side, yet his eyes burn with a fire that defies pain. He rises slowly, his muscles trembling from exertion, and I describe the scene, the scattered bones, the cave's slick walls, the lion's lifeless eyes staring into the void. The battle was a clash of titans, Heracles' strength pitted against a creature no blade could pierce, and I feel the weight of the gods gaze Apollo's promise of redemption, Hera's lingering malice. My quill scratches furiously, capturing the hero's victory. The moment he defied the impossible, he steps back, his breath steadying, and surveys the beast. I record his focus, the way his hands flex, as if testing their strength after the ordeal. Eurystheus' command echoes in my mind to slay the lion and bring its pelt as proof. The hide, impervious to arrow and sword, lies before him, a challenge as daunting as the battle itself. Kata, I note the irony. Heracles, who felled the beast with his hands, now faces the task of skinning it without mortal tools. Kani kneels again, his fingers tracing the lion's fur, and I see a flicker of realization in his eyes, a plan forming. My lamp flickers, casting long shadows, and I press closer, my heart pounding as I write. Heracles grasps one of the lion's massive paws, his claws glinting like obsidian in the dim light. I describe the moment, the way he studies the claws, their edges sharp enough to rend stone. He grips one, testing its strength, and I note the spark in his gaze. The ingenuity of a man born of Zeus. With a grunt, he pries the claw free, its root glistening with blood, and holds it like a dagger. I scribble, my hand cramping, capturing the brilliance of his solution. The lion's own weapon turned against it. He begins to cut, the claw slicing through the impervious hide with a sound like tearing cloth, and I feel a surge of awe, as if Apollo himself guides his hand. The task is slow, meticulous, and I describe the effort, Heracles' muscles straining, his wounds weeping blood as he works, the hide parts under the claw, revealing sinew and muscle beneath. And I note the precision, the way he carves with care, as if honoring the beast he slew. The cave's air grows thicker, the stench of blood and fur overwhelming. But Heracles does not falter, his focus unbroken. I record the scene, the lamp's light dancing on the golden hide, the bones scattered like offerings around us. The lion, a creature of Hera's wrath, yields to Heracles' will, its pelt becoming a trophy of his triumph. My quill races, capturing the moment, the hero's defiance of divine odds as he works. I reflect on the battle, my scrolls filling with the memory of his wrestle, the lion's roars, his unyielding grip, the cave trembling under their fury. I note the blood on his cloak, its tattered remains a mirror of the lion's pelt, both symbols of struggle. The claw cuts deeper, peeling the hide from the beast's flanks. Can I describe the sound? A wet rip that echoes in the silence. Heracles' hands are steady, his eyes locked on the task, and I sense his determination, a fire that burns brighter than his wounds. My lamp sputters, its flame weak, but I ride on, driven by my duty to this saga. Knowing this pelt will mark Heracles' legend, the hide comes free, a massive sheet of golden fur, shimmering even in the cave's dim light. I sketch it, my quill capturing its size, its weight, the way it drapes over Heracles' arms like a king's mantle. He lifts it, testing its heft, and I note the pride in his stance, tempered by exhaustion. The lion's skull, still attached, glares with empty eyes, and Heracles adjusts it, fitting it over his shoulders, the jaws framing his head. I describe the transformation, the tattered cloak replaced by the lion's pelt, a new symbol of his strength, a defiance of Hera's. Well, my ink smudges, my hand trembling as I record the moment, the hero reborn in the beast's skin. The capital of Zerathia, Solara, stood defiant under a bruised sky, its golden spires dulled by the smoke of war. Foreign armies, their banners a riot of colors from distant realms, and allied with traitorous nobles who sought to shatter Emperor Keller's reign. Their forces encircled the city like a noose, their war drums a relentless pulse that echoed through the streets. I stood on the eastern ramparts, my cloak whipping in the wind, beside Arion, commander of the Loyalist Guard. His silver armor caught the fading sunlight, a symbol of resistance against the encroaching dark. They outnumber us, 3-1, I said, my voice steady, despite the dread knotting my stomach. Siege towers loomed on the horizon, their shadows creeping closer with each passing hour. Arion's eyes, sharp as flint, met mine. Numbers mean nothing if we hold the walls. Solara has never fallen. His confidence was a spark, but I saw the strain in his clenched jaw. The traitors within had already sown chaos, poisoning wells and sabotaging defenses. I gripped my sword, its familiar weight grounding me. Then we rallied the loyalist, every soul who still believes in Zerathia. Orion nodded, and we descended. to the courtyard, where soldiers and civilians gathered, their faces etched with fear and resolve. I spoke of the Empire's legacy, of honor and unity, my words cutting through the murmurs of doubt. Fists clenched, eyes hardened, and a ragged cheer rose. We would fight. That night, the siege began in earnest. Catapults hurled flaming boulders, shattering rooftops and igniting homes. Arrows fell like rain, and I shielded a young archer, Hera, as we returned fire from the battlements. Ariane led a sortie to destroy an enemy ram, his blade a blur as he carved through invaders. Blood stained the cobblestones, and screams filled the air. By dawn, the walls held, but the cost was staggering. Bodies littered the streets, and the air was thick with grief. I caught Ariane's gaze as we dragged a wounded soldier to safety. "This is only the beginning," he said. I nodded, my heart heavy, knowing he spoke the truth. The siege stretched into days, each one a blur of blood and fire. The enemy's assaults grew bolder, their battering rams splintering our gates. Whispers of a secret weapon among the loyalists gave us hope, and Orion confided in me about a legend. A hidden vault beneath Solara, said to house an ancient relic capable of turning the tide. "If it exists," he said, his voice low, "we must find it." Under cover of night, we slipped through the city's underbelly, navigating tunnels known only to a few. My torch cast flickering shadows on damp stone walls, the air heavy with the scent of earth and decay. Orion carried a map, half faded and drawn from memory, passed down by his father. "Here," he said, stopping at a sealed door carved with runes. I traced the symbols, my scholar's mind deciphering their warning. Power lies within. But, at a cost, we pried the door open with a crowbar, revealing a chamber aglow with an eerie light. At its center stood the Relica crystalline orb, pulsing with a faint, violet hum. Its surface seemed to writhe, as if alive. Arian reached for it, but I grabbed his arm. The rune spoke of a cost, I warned, my voice tight. His eyes searched mine, torn between desperation and caution. "We have no choice," he said. I nodded, my heart pounding, and we carried the relic back to the surface, its weight heavier than stone. The tunnels seemed to close in around us, as if the city itself dreaded what we had unleashed. Section 12. The Relic's Curse Back in Solara. We presented the relic to the War Council in a crumbling hall lit by flickering torches. The generals, haggard and desperate, argued fiercely. Some called the orb salvation, others a curse. I urged caution, my mind replaying the rune's warning, but Arian, haunted by the sight of our dwindling forces, insisted we act. "If we don't, Solara falls," he said, his voice raw. Guilt gnawed at me, but I relented, unable to offer another path. We placed the relic in the central plaza, its glow casting long shadows across the shattered city. Arian recited the incantation from the vault's runes, his voice steady despite the chaos around us. The orb flared, its light blinding, and a shockwave rippled outward. For a moment, hope surged. Enemy lines faltered, their soldiers clutching their heads in agony as if struck by an unseen force. But then the ground trembled, and the relic's light turned a malevolent crimson. A destructive force erupted, indiscriminate and ravenous, tore through friend and foe alike, collapsing towers and igniting fires that consumed entire districts. I watched, horrified, as loyalists screamed, their bodies caught in the maelstrom. Myra, the archer, vanished in a blaze of light, her cry cut short. The enemy retreated, but our losses were catastrophic. Half the city lay in ruins, its defenses crumbled. The relic's glow faded, as if mocking us. I fell to my knees, guilt burning hotter than the flames around us. Arian's face was ashen. "What have we done?" he whispered. I had no answer, only the weight of our failure crushing my chest. The relic's devastation left Solara vulnerable, its walls breached and its people broken. The enemy regrouped, their horns blaring as they stormed the city. Orion and I rallied what remained of the loyalists for a final stand at the palace, the heart of Zerathia. The courtyard was a graveyard of shattered stone and fallen heroes, but we stood firm, our blades slick with blood. I fought beside Arion, his movements a dance of precision despite his exhaustion. "Stay close," he shouted as we pushed back a wave of invaders. My sword met steel and flesh, each strike fueled by desperation. Comrades fell around us Storn, whose laughter had once filled the barracks, took an arrow to the chest. Lyra, another archer, fell defending a wounded child. The palace gates buckled, and the enemy poured in, their boots trampling the banners of Zerathia. We held the throne room, our backs to the emperor's empty seat. Keller had vanished days ago, rumored, dead or fled. The enemy's commander, a traitor noble named Varys, sneered as he advanced, his blade gleaming. "Zerathia is finished," he said. Orion spat blood and charged, his sword meeting Varys's in a clash that shook the hall. I joined him, fighting with a fury born of loss. But the enemy was too many. Orion took a blade to the shoulder, staggering, but unyielding. "We don't stop," he growled, blood seeping through his armor. I nodded, tears mixing with sweat, and we fought on, knowing the end was near. The palace walls echoed with the screams of the dying, and Solara's heart broke. Amid the chaos, a servant girl, her face streaked with soot, found me in the throne room's shadow. "The prince," she gasped, pulling me to a hidden chamber beneath the floor. There, cradled in shadows, was a boy no older than 10, his eyes wide with fear but bearing Keller's unmistakable features, sharp cheekbones, a steady gaze, the emperor's heir, hidden from all, even us. "His name is Elian," she whispered. "Protect him." I swore an oath then, my voice steady despite the battle raging above. Orion, bloodied but alive, joined us, his eyes softening at the sight of the boy. "We get him out," he said, his voice firm despite his pain. The city was burning, its streets choked with smoke and death. We wrapped Elian in a cloak, his small hand clutching mine, and fled through a secret passage that led beyond the walls. The tunnel was narrow, the air thick with dust, but we pressed on, the sounds of Solara's fall fading behind us. We emerged into the hills, and Solara's glow, a funeral pyre against the night. Orion limped, his wound slowing him, but he refused to falter. "The prince is Zerathia's future," he said, his breath ragged. I nodded, my heart heavy with the weight of our failure to save the city. Elian said nothing, his eyes fixed on the burning horizon, his small frame trembling. I vowed to keep him safe, no matter the cost, my scholar's hands now stained with blood and ash. Weeks later, we found refuge in a remote village nestled in a valley, its people unaware of the empire's fall. Elian slept fitfully, haunted by nightmares of fire and steel. Arian's wound healed slowly, tended by a village healer, but his spirit remained unbroken. I took to writing, my quill scratching against parchment as I recorded Zerathia's final days. The empire was gone, its glory reduced to ash, but its ideal honor, unity, sacrifice lived in us. I taught Elian the stories of his father's reign, of Solara's golden age, when its markets bustled and its people thrived. I listened, his young face hardening with resolve. "I'll rebuild it," he said one night, his voice small but fierce, clutching a wooden sword Arion had carved. I smiled, though my heart ached. The road ahead would be long, fraught with danger and doubt. Arion and I trained him, teaching him the sword and the wisdom of rulers. My writings became a chronicle, a testament to Zerathia's legacy, meant for a future that might yet rise from the ashes. As I wrote, I reflected on our choices, the relic's curse, the lives lost, the city we couldn't save. Guilt lingered, a shadow over every word, but so did hope. Ilion was our purpose now, a spark in the darkness. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, I looked at Urion and Ilion, their silhouettes framed against the fading light. Arion's hand rested on the prince's shoulder, his eyes fierce with determination. "We carry Zerathia with us," I said, my voice steady. Orion nodded, and Ilion looked up at me, his eyes bright with a fire that mirrored his father's. "We'll make it live again," he said. In that moment, I believed him, and the weight of my quill felt lighter, as if the future might yet be written.